Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 11 of the Dateable AF podcast. Today, we have a treat for you, and we are talking about something that might be a little controversial. Our topic is Open for Business, a discussion of ethical non-monogamy. So, contrary to popular belief, ethical non-monogamy is not a free-for-all. We would say it's more like a team project with a lot of Google Calendar invites. So today we're going to be defining the topic for you. So what does ethical non-monogamy mean? Who does it work for? And why it's not just about sex, but it's more about honesty, structure, and emotional growth.
I don't know.
Just laughs.
I don't know where to start on this one because it makes me want to be very mischievous. And as the audience knows, it's pretty easy for me to do.
As we discussed, Rachel might be in prison before our next episode gets recorded. So if y'all been listening, you know the details of that. Anyway.
So common misconceptions. It's just an excuse to cheat.
Yep. Sometimes people think that being non-monogamous is just an excuse to cheat on your partner. It is not that, and we're going to explain why. We also believe that if you're in an open relationship, it means you don't get jealous. Absolutely not true.
Well, and also it never works long term. And that one's interesting because I know you've talked about that, that you've not had a lot of you've not seen a lot of success from your clients that have come in who are trying to have that type of open relationship.
Yep, I'll get a little more into that because I think there are some, and again, my sample size is small. I've been in private practice for 25 years, but I have seen quite a few relationships over the years that have been ethically non-monogamous, and some kinds I have seen work better than others. So anyway, we'll get into that a little bit later in our episode.
Well, there's a term that it showed up was consensually non-monogamous, and I'm assuming that's the same thing as ethically non-monogamous.
Yes, because if you think about it, a lot of people are in non-monogamous relationships, but their partner just doesn't know about it. We like to call that cheating.
I know. I guilty as charged.
Well, we don't have to talk about our personal experiences here, but yeah, so I mean, a lot of people might say that they're in an open relationship, but their partner doesn't know it. So that is not an ethically non-monogamous relationship. So let's talk about the definition of ethical non-monogamy.
So any relationship structure where all partners agree that romantic or sexual connections with others are okay and everyone knows about it.
Yes. So the key parts to this are all partners agree and everyone knows about it. So if anyone in that structure is not fully clued in, then the practice is not considered ethical non-monogamy.
So I have a little research.
Okay. Let's hear about
the percentage of folks that participate in said activities.
Okay. I want to hear it.
So approximately 3 to 7% of the population out there is practicing consensual non-monogamy.
Okay. Is that just in general?
In general.
Okay.
In general.
All right.
And 25% of couples out there have had past experiences, or people have had past experiences in relationships and them not being monogamous.
Okay, so that indicates that quite a few people have tried it, and for whatever reason, they're not participating in it right now.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I would like to talk a little bit about the different types of open relationships. So if you think about open relationships as an umbrella, the umbrella of open relationships just means that one or both partners can date other people or sleep with other people or engage sexually with other people. So that's just any time that there is romantic or sexual connection with someone outside of the primary partnership, that is considered an open relationship. Now, under that umbrella, there are different types of open relationships. So one of those is called polyamory. And in polyamory, you love or you maintain relationships with multiple people. And those relationships often have emotional depth to them. So this isn't just you're going out and having a sexual encounter with somebody. This is you have a primary partner, and then you also have a secondary or maybe tertiary partner. And that means that you have actual relationships with those people.
Sexual?
Sexual and romantic, often romantic. So I'm thinking of, yeah, I mean, I don't even have to say anything about a specific client. So this might be, I live with my partner, and every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I go spend the night with my secondary partner, or I have dates with my secondary partner. And I've had relationships where let me say that. Just kidding, Joe.
I couldn't wait for that one. Like, all right, here we go. Carousel with you.
I have had clients with relationships where they were actually planning retirement with more than one person. So they would have a retirement account with their primary partner, and then they would have another retirement account with their secondary partner, or they would have a vacation home with one partner and they would have a separate vacation home with another partner. So this really looks like you're maintaining more than one actual relationship.
Wait, before you go on with that.
Yes. Do you have a question?
Because if you can see, I'm squinting into the screen.
Yes.
Having one relationship with a woman can just put you over the barrel and be very. Can you imagine having one on the MWF and then you have another one on the Tuesday, Thursday, and then maybe a third one on the weekends or something?
I mean, it's a lot. It is a lot to manage. I will tell you that. And it is not easy to pull this off successfully, but we'll get into that part more. So polyamory, that is one type of open relationship. There is another type of open relationship. And for some reason, this term just sounds, I don't care for the term, but it's what we call it, swinging. I just picture like 70s bars with a lot of disco lights or something and shirtless hairy men, or I don't know. That's what comes to mind when I think of that term. But swinging is basically, I have one partner that I engage, that is my primary and only partner. But sometimes my partner and I engage in sexual activity with other people, and it is consensual. So that might mean you and your partner go out, you see someone hot at the bar, you pick up that person, you take them home, you have sex with them, and then you move on. So there's not really the romantic component in swinging. It's just more of a sexual diversion, shall we say. So there is a third type of ethical non-monogamy that I'm not that familiar with, but it's called relationship anarchy. So basically, this means that there are no rules. So there's no hierarchy, there's no primary partner, no secondary partner. Everybody kind of defines their own boundaries, but it does involve being sexual and romantic with more than one person, or at least being open to the potential of that. So you're not sort of nesting with one person primarily, and then you have a person on the side. It's just everyone's sort of equal in that. But in all of these, the thing that I want to emphasize is the ethical part means that everyone's honest with each other, that everyone's consenting, and everyone's communicating openly with each other.
So I'd like to go back first to the swinging, because
Okay, I can see that Rachel has a lot of questions about this whole thing.
So that one, I will say, what I envision with that term is like the woman on a trapeze, swinging.
Oh yeah.
From
okay.
Yeah.
It would involve that.
That's my picture.
As long as everyone consents. There can be a trapeze.
But for those of you, if you're an Austin listener, I do believe we have a part of town that caters to the swingers. That I don't know, I've personally not experienced, but my understanding is that they do.
I feel like there might be some liability in mentioning this, but I don't know.
A meetup, I'm not going to say the name.
There might be a certain restaurant in a certain part of town where a lot
That's
of people in
right.
this community congregate.
Yes.
If you want to know, DM us and we'll tell you.
Yeah, it'll be on the down low.
That's right.
So then getting on to this relationship anarchy. Okay. So I'm just going to say what they've just given a name to you're just dating around and having sex with multiple people. What's the
This is
difference?
true. This is true. Yep. I think that is true. And I think it's a hard thing for a lot of people to pull off because most people are going to get more attached to one person. So that's just my
Yeah.
feeling. But if you are a relationship anarchist, please talk to us. We want to hear from you.
I do love the term relationship instead of just a sleep.
We're going to send you undercover to do this, to participate in relationship anarchy, and then you can come back and report to us.
I love it.
Inquiring minds want to know.
No kidding. Well, Dr. Kyle, I really do appreciate you clarifying these terms for us. It was very enlightening to me as well, and it made my head hurt thinking about all these variations of things that are possibilities. Really would have been greater possibilities for a younger person than myself. But anyway.
You just don't have the energy for it now.
Very tired. Just listening to it made me extremely tired.
You're not even sure you have the energy for one relationship right now, I think.
I was just like, oh my God, my head was spinning. And made me think about while you were talking about it, texting, as we know that you can get yourself in trouble texting these days. Mm-hmm. And I could see where you could potentially end up in some crossover texts that would be.
Yep.
And my understanding is you can't withdraw once they get out there.
Once somebody's read it, you can't take it back. I just want to say, y'all, that one time Rachel was texting a group text that she accidentally included someone that she didn't want to be included in the group text, and it was a real bad situation. God, if you want more details, you can ask me about that directly, because I'm not going to say.
It was one of the worst moments of my life.
But I feel like we did a workaround, and it turned out all right. It turned out all right.
God, of the grace of the person that got put in it. She was so lovely about my absolute.
Just pretended she didn't even read it, I think.
I was screaming to Sarah and Joe, get it off! Get it off!
Like, nope, no can do, friend. You put that in the wrong group. Let's just say that was not that was not a situation that had anything to do with ethical non-monogamy. I just want to say, but
it didn't. But I could see where that would happen if you could get your Monday, Wednesday, Friday person confused with your Tuesday, Thursday person, or your weekend person.
Very bad. Very bad.
Not be good.
Well, let's talk about why someone might choose ethical non-monogamy. Why would somebody want to be in an open relationship?
Well, the obvious to me would be variety, exploration. You're just the type of person that likes different opportunities.
Mix it up. Yes, that is the main thing, I think, is that people have this idea about getting in a rut, getting stuck. I'm never going to have sex with anyone else for the rest of my life because I've married this person. So yes, I think people just want some variety in that. I think there's also a segment of the population that believes that love isn't finite, that we have the capacity to love and be in relationships with more than one person.
Yeah, I don't feel judgmental about that when I've often been curious about that. And also as a single person who has done some dating, I've wondered about that later in life, but I still don't, it's an interesting concept. Yeah. But it seems that it could get messy.
Yeah. Oh, there are many, many ways this can get messy. I can talk to you about some of those. So one of the reasons that I see people deciding to open their relationship, and I have mixed feelings about this one, is that when two partners have different sex drives or different sexual needs, this one can get a little bit tricky because no two partners have exactly the same level of drive. It's called mixed drive. And I think that saying, I want more sex than you, therefore I'm going to go get it somewhere else, that can get really dicey. Or saying, I don't want to have sex with you and you want sex, so you should go get it somewhere else. So we can talk about more specifics about that, but that is one of the reasons people decide to open their relationship.
Yeah, that one too, I could see where that would be very tricky. I do believe that there are some people who can approach sex in a say maybe a little more clinical fashion, or not don't have to have a deep emotional attachment, and others who really need that to make
Yep.
that really what they want. And
Yep.
you just need to know which type of person you are, because if you're the first person, you can probably pull that off. If you're the other person, going to get in trouble.
It's a little more difficult, right? Especially if you start out thinking that you're swinging, we'll go back to that term, that you're just going to have casual sex with someone and you realize that you are not someone who can have casual sex. That can go south real quick because you engage in sexual activity with someone and then pretty soon you're falling in love with them, and then that can take a toll on your primary relationship. So anyway, there's so many potential pitfalls here.
Oof.
So I think sometimes too, people broach the subject of opening their relationship because they have developed an attraction to someone. And the idea is, I'd rather have an awkward conversation with my partner than a secret, or I'd rather have a difficult conversation than have an affair. So that can be a reason why people decide to bring up the subject of non-monogamy with their partner.
Ooh, that one is also that has all sorts of implications, because once you put it out there, you can't take it back.
You can't take it back.
And the yeah, the potential response that your partner is going to have can be pretty rough, and then you've got to work through that. So anyway, I don't know. I see a lot of pitfalls, and so I have a little bit more research I'd like to add into this right now as we begin to
Yeah.
explore some of these misconceptions and myths about some of this.
Okay.
One of the things that when I was reading about this that I think is interesting to consider in this conversation is you've talked a lot about the fact that you haven't seen a lot of success with people doing variations of this to spice up their intimate relationship. There's a lot in the research that talked about the fact that the biggest problem around it in many ways was the stigma from other people about
Mhm.
it. And so not necessarily what was happening within the non-monogamous situation, but the responses that they were getting from the outside world
Yeah.
about what they were doing
Yes.
and how it made them feel. Like maybe they were feeling like they were doing something they shouldn't be doing, or it wasn't going to work, or it was going to go bad. Anyway, I just want to float that out there because that came out pretty strong in one of the studies I looked at. The other thing I found was that 96% of participants of this study that was pretty significant. 96% of the participants that expected to be in a monogamous relationship, okay, only 30% of those explicitly expressed those expectations.
So, in other words, I'm going into a relationship with someone and I assume it's going to be monogamous and I want it to be monogamous, but I'm not going to say that out loud. Maybe because I
Right.
don't think it needs to be said.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, and so I think that's kind of interesting because I can see where that would be the case. I think a lot of us do go in and you think, okay, we're all on the same page here, and it's just not something that you discuss,
Hmm.
assuming that you both feel that way. And anyway, I thought that was a pretty big percentage of folks
Yeah.
within that. And then lesbians and bi women in particular have a higher rate of non-monogamous relationships than hetero women do.
Really? That is so surprising to me.
Yep. So the lesbians, especially bi women,
Hmm.
are at about a 21 to 33%
Hmm.
non-monogamous to about 16%
Of
are hetero.
heterosexual women?
Hmm.
That's very interesting. Well, you
Yeah.
said at the beginning that the percentage overall, I think you said was 7%.
Anywhere
And
between 3 to 7%.
wow. And so that means that men are the ones bringing the percentage down?
Well, and that I didn't gay men definitely are higher with all the percentages on this. So
Yeah,
there's for
for sure.
sure. And I just didn't even put that in here because we all know it that data's high, and we're really talking to women about women.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it is interesting. I did a presentation about non-monogamy some years ago, and the percentage of gay men that had non-monogamous relationships was high. It was like in the 80s, some really, really high percent. And I don't know if that means currently or ever. Like maybe they were at one time non-monogamous and they're not now. I don't know if that included that, but I remember being very surprised at that. Consensually non-monogamous. So anyway.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's just yeah, it's interesting, but it's all of the rates are. I mean, those are significant numbers. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
big difference between a 3% and 7% too. So the study just they weren't able
Yeah.
to narrow that down.
Narrow it down. I did want to clarify because you've brought it up a couple of times, and I think I've brought it up on the pod before too, that when I say I haven't seen when I say I haven't seen this work, what I want to qualify that over 25 years in practice, I have worked with lots and lots of relationships, and I have seen lots of people try various versions of this. And what I will say is every time someone comes to me and says, "Hey, my partner are thinking about opening up our relationship. I've met someone else. I want to see them." Every time I say, I am rooting for you. I hope this is the first time that I see long-term success." And I know conceptually that there are people out there who have had long-term success with polyamory because I've read books about it. In my personal experience, I have not seen this work for the long term. That means you are my primary partner, someone else is my secondary partner. I'm going to maintain romantic and sexual relationships with more than one person over the long haul. I have seen this work for a year. I've seen it work for 2 years. Maybe I've seen it work for 3 years. I personally have not had clients who have made this work longer than that. It's something always, the wheels always fall off somehow. What I have seen work is I have some couples that have been together long, long time, and they are swingers. Again, I hate that term, but I wish there was something better. So they will, when they go on vacation, they'll be at a resort and they will meet someone and bring that person in to have sex. And then they all go back to their respective homes and they never talk to that person again. That I've seen people who have been together for 30, 40 years that do this as a practice and they're still happy together. Again, small sample size. I don't know what we can extrapolate from that, but anecdotally, that is what I have seen. That swinging seems to work better in long-term relationships. Polyamory is harder to pull off.
Couple of thoughts come to mind. One is that if they're in your office, question I would have is, are they trying to do something? Their relationship is broken in a way that what they're trying to throw at it is actually not the right solution.
Great
So
question.
yeah, so that exploration would be, okay, are they coming up with something that they think is the thing, but it's actually not the thing that they
Oh,
need
girl. And
to be working on. So
yes.
I could see where once they get in your office, there's probably that them adding another person in the relationship is probably not the answer to what's going on.
Well, okay. I want to sort of bust that myth because you are 100% correct. And I'm saying this to all of our listeners out there. If your relationship is in trouble or struggling or in any way on the rocks, and you think that opening the relationship up is going to fix something, you are sadly mistaken. Because that's like saying, we're really unhappy. I think we should have a baby. No, friend, that is not what's going to fix it. That is going to break it more. So Opening up your relationship is not going to fix anything. The couples that I'm referring to, I'm thinking of one in particular that came to me and said, we had an open relationship before, and for various reasons, we closed the relationship back up. And now we're thinking of opening it again. And we want to just talk through that with you before we decide to make a move on that. So they weren't struggling. Nothing was wrong. They just wanted to talk through it with a neutral third party before they made that decision. So that's more what I'm talking about, is not somebody who's coming to therapy because they're in trouble, but just wanting to process through something.
Yeah. And then what you said about the swinging, I do know a couple, and that makes a lot more sense to me why that could survive and be live effectively within a monogamous relationship. Is that I know a couple and have known them for a very, very long time, and they have been married for years, and they have participated in that over time. And in very much so, like a bring someone in, but they're together. This person doesn't live with them. They're just periodically that person is engaged with them. They've also, that person, I think, traveled with them a little bit. So there was a time where maybe they were together in some ways, but I do believe that their relationship, their marriage was very clear. And I know this couple well, and they've been married for an extremely long time, and they are madly in love with each other and always have been. Yeah. And so that, again, I think they both were in total agreement on how that would happen, and it worked for them. And I think they've aged out of it and probably don't participate in that anymore. I don't know. I'm not there, but for a period of time, I think that worked for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about how you could make this work. If you're thinking of opening your relationship and practicing ethical non-monogamy, what are the key things that have to be in place to actually make this work out? And the first thing I would say is you have to have radical honesty. That means even when it's uncomfortable, even when you're dreading talking about something, you have to talk about it with all the parties involved. And you talk about these things before they turn into secrets. So you can't wait until you're holding on to something and now it's a secret and now you're confessing, because that's never going to go well.
A given. And yeah, it seems obvious, but absolutely. And I also would think that just being very clear that you've got to make sure that everybody's sexually safe too. I mean, because that could be a big problem.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that is a part of the honesty, is that, you talk about your sexual health, you talk about what kind of safe sex you want to practice. All of those things become really important. Another super important thing is emotional regulation, because what happens in a new situation, and everybody's felt this, at the beginning, you're on this high, you love this person, you think they're amazing, you don't know any of the negative things about them, so they seem perfect, and you have that kind of in love limerence feeling that we've talked about before. You don't have that with your partner. You and your partner have already discovered all the things about each other, so you're never going to get that particular high back. And it's just important to regulate and make sure that you keep that in perspective, that whatever you're feeling with this new person is fleeting, and you don't want to wreck something long term based on that fleeting feeling. So you got to regulate your emotions.
Right. And that's oh my God, I've never felt this way about this person I'm with. Yes, you did. You did at one point, probably, hopefully, if you're married to them or whatever.
Yes, for sure. And that jealousy is going to be a normal part of the process. I have never seen an open relationship where someone didn't feel a little bit of jealousy, but the key is that you have to talk about it. You have to be honest about what's happening. And if you let that jealousy morph into controlling the other person's behavior, it's not going to go well.
Nope. Never does.
Never does.
And the boundaries and agreements, that to me is also key, that if you've made agreements, like, for example, if you've said, hey, we're all okay with bringing this other person in periodically, but we're only going to see them together. We're never going to split off and see them separately. Then
Yep.
then you need to hold to that, because based on some things we know, if you sneak off and see one of them separately, it could go bad. And this doesn't have anything to do with the experience me and Sarah have had. I'm just going to say that. But we have
Nope.
a Monique or a Veronica that we know who, well, let's just say is problematic.
There might have been a little problem with it. Yeah. And also just knowing what's okay and what's not. So you brought up the practice of, sexual health or safe sex. If you agree that you're going to only have safe sex with someone, you have to hold that boundary or hold that agreement, because you're putting someone else's health in jeopardy if you don't do that. So just making sure that you're talking a lot about what you're agreeing to, what's okay, what boundaries you need to set for yourself, and keeping any agreements that you make.
Scheduling and communication.
You're my Monday, Wednesday, Friday girl.
Don't mix it up.
Don't mix it up. Yeah, you have to know. Yeah, because if you're in an open relationship, you have to make sure you're giving appropriate time to the parties that are involved, and being really clear about what the schedule is, being really clear about how you're communicating, and yeah, use that Google Calendar, people.
Yeah. And then to that information that I was sharing earlier, I really do think we can oftentimes be pretty judgmental. And I think that if people that are participating in open non-monogamous relationships, honest non-monogamous relationships, that they need to find like kind of people who don't judge them, maybe not other people that are doing exactly what they're doing. But for those of us sitting on this side of it, I think we also need to think about that
Yeah.
and make sure that we don't lay down some additional judgment on that. Personally, I just would want to hear more about it myself. Very curious.
Rachel's got a lot of questions for you. Yeah, I can remember years ago, like knowing a couple that was together and then seeing pictures on social media of one of the partners with someone else, obviously romantic, like with their arms around each other or holding hands, and thinking, what's happening? Did they break up? And then I was like, oh, no, they didn't break up. They have an additional person in the mix here. But if you're being so public about it, people are going to have questions, because it is not, well, I was going to say it's not typical, but by the statistics you read, it's more typical than we realize, but it's not something that people talk about openly. And I've had clients taking their throuple home to the family or things like that. And, parents don't always have a great reaction to this, or taking the throuple would all go to the kids' parent teacher conference or something like that. And people are not as open-minded. So I can see why that would get some, sideways glances. So know your audience.
Confusing.
Yeah, know your audience, and, pick your battles and figure out where you want to explain yourself. And yeah, but yes, finding community and finding people who accept you, who aren't going to be judgmental about this choice that you're making. I think that's really important.
When we think a little bit about, when we get to advice, I'll talk about this, but kind of ways it can go wrong. One is for sure when one person says yes, and then the other person maybe is saying maybe, and and especially if you're not listening, you're kind of running with what you want.
Oh man, this happens so often that one partner will bring it up. The other partner's afraid of losing the relationship. They don't really want to open their relationship, but they're afraid if they don't, then they're going to lose it altogether. So they're like, oh, okay, but they don't really mean yes. They mean maybe. That is a recipe for disaster. You have to have both people wholeheartedly being willing to say yes or being willing to give it a try. And if you don't feel a wholehearted yes, then the answer is no. I mean, that's you can't push someone into this and hope that it'll turn out okay.
I hope you get the yes once you're doing it.
Yeah, you can't be in the middle of it and then try to get the yes.
Yeah, I know I can get her to a yes. So I'll just get her up
Yes.
here. And then talking about what we were discussing earlier and using the ethical non-monogamy as a way to fix something in your relationship. Bad idea.
Bad idea, people. It's never going to work. Yep, people use this to avoid commitment. They don't want to be wholeheartedly just in with one person, or they think that opening things up will fix something that's broken. Like our sex life's not working out. Why don't we bring someone else into the mix? Nope. Bad idea. Get it fixed first and then make a decision about it.
My, then withholding information or bending the agreed upon rules, which we discussed earlier. If you agree
Yep.
on the rules,
Yep.
if one of you sneaks off and has a little time with somebody,
Mm-mm. And I think too, I've seen this happen where the relationship was open in the sense of swinging, like you said, that, we'll go out together and if we see someone, that would be okay. And then because the relationship is defined as open, one person takes that ball and runs with it and falls in love with someone else. And they justify it by saying, well, it's okay. Our relationship was open. So just make sure that you're being completely honest and you're not withholding information, because what happens is then you start to lose sight of the emotional safety. And once there's no emotional safety, the relationship's not going to work.
I think this whole topic is very dicey and potentially volatile.
Yep.
In a relationship, if you're in a relationship that you really want to keep and want to be in, I think you just have to really know your stuff in order to do this well. Thinking about it in the dating world, I do think that based on these statistics that we saw about people making assumptions, these are good conversations to have as you're dating someone and you are beginning to be involved intimately with them. I think that you'd be foolish to assume that that they are feeling the same way you are, whether you are wanting an open relationship or whether or not you feel like you're a monogamous person, but you
Yeah.
should talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, according to your statistics, there's a very high percentage of people, like 30% of people make the wrong assumption. So yes, you should definitely talk about it beforehand, before anything physical happens, for sure. Like you can't step outside your relationship and then talk about opening up your relationship. So you want to make sure you're talking prolifically before anything physical happens.
Yep. And again, the advice of making sure that your relationship is in a solid place before you open it up.
Yes. Yes. Opening your relationship is not a way to fix a struggling relationship. We cannot emphasize that enough. So yes, if you and your partner are solid, everything's great, and you want to do something spicy, then talk about it if you want to. But don't look at this as a fix for anything.
Which goes to start slow, and there are no prizes for the most partners.
You get a prize. You get a prize.
Hey, hey, hey.
Like, did I win? I got the most partners. Yeah. And I think just being really clear with yourself about why you want this. What do you think this is going to bring? What are you hoping to experience? What are you hoping to learn from this? And being clear with yourself so that you can talk to your partner about that.
Yeah. And let me just be clear that when we say partners, I consider a partner as somebody that you have committed to as a partner. That's not the same as just people you're dated.
No, agree, 100%. Agreed. Yes, agreed. If you've been on a couple of dates with somebody, that is not considered your partner. In the big scheme, though, I want you to remember that ethical non-monogamy is always optional. So if you feel like you're getting railroaded into it, or if somehow your partner brings it up and it just feels wrong for you, it's okay. Like that is perfectly valid.
Yeah. And non-monogamy isn't a new thing. It's it's been around for a long time.
It's been around for a long time. Been around for
We're
a long
bringing
time.
it into the light of day.
Yep. It's just like now, I don't think there are more gay people than there were before. I just think it's more okay to be open about being gay. Same thing with non-monogamy. People have always practiced this. If you think there were books written in the 70s about non-monogamous lifestyles, And it was going on way before that too. But I think just now it's finally being discussed openly and it's finally being discussed ethically.
Yeah. Well, should we come to a close here on this
Yeah,
very interesting topic?
very dicey topic. Yes. And in closing, I do want to say that the ethical part of this matters more than the non monogamous part. You want to always handle this consciously, thoughtfully, ethically, if it's something that you're thinking of venturing into. Make sure that you put ethics first, non monogamy second.
It's good advice, Dr. Kyle.
And yeah, whether you're monogamous, whether you're open, or whether you're just figuring it out, the key things to remember are you want to practice honesty, you want to set good boundaries, and you want to be respectful of yourself and your partner.
Yep. Always good.
Always good. So yeah, just remember being open isn't about loving more people. It's about learning to love more honestly.
So, some points for discussion if you're wanting to talk about this with either with somebody you're dating or your partner. And one is on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe how receptive are you to an idea of openness in your relationship? So, I think that would be interesting if you wanted to open that discussion and say, ask one another, like, where would you fall on that scale?
Yeah. That's going to scare the pants off your partner if you bring that up. Or maybe they'd be real excited if you brought it up. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah,
and I mean, I've run into folks who have already done this, so
yeah, for sure.
it's not it's just not that uncommon.
Yeah, you're right. And I think another point of discussion is what parts of an open relationship would be appealing to you, or what parts of that would be distasteful to you. Even if you and your partner have no intention of opening your relationship, these are like interesting, fun things to discuss.
Yeah. And it's always fun if you have a good situation with your partner to flirt, just the two of you across the room with somebody, and then, you don't have to take them home,
Yeah,
but you can
and you
joint
go
flirt.
home together. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, I think that is a wrap for today. And I am curious to hear what our listeners think about this topic, because I know that this is a controversial topic. And as always, you guys, we love hearing your comments. We love hearing your feedback. So please keep sending us texts and DMs and emails. You can reach us at info@dateableaf.com, or you can DM us on Instagram at Dateable AF. And we are talking about your feedback in our after party episode. So don't miss that, because you might hear your own feedback coming back to you in our after party. So please do send us your thoughts.
We won't out you.
No, we will call you Monique or Veronica unless you
Mhm.
indicate that you're okay being outed. You'll just secretly know it's you. So anyway, join us next week. We are going to be talking about Sealed with a Mess, why kissing can be magic or a total red flag.
Oh,
And
Lord.
as always, we want to thank you for listening to the Dateable AF podcast, where we help you find your happy ending.
And remember, be bold, be kind, and for the love of queer dating, don't text your ex. Stay dateable.
AF.